locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke loves wrestling.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hello, hello. The man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour. That's right, the Duke. Listen, I gave the Boston bad boy the night off. We're celebrating Black History Month, and I wanted to bring up a couple of topics that are near and dear to my heart. And I figured, you know something? I got to do this one solo. I appreciate the Boston bad boy and all of his nonsense, but sometimes you got to do this one solo, and that's what we're going to do this week. Got a couple of special guests coming up. First of all, from DDT Divas, Sade. You know, it's a new blog that's out there, new website. She's doing a great job. So we're going to talk to Sade and hear about what she's got going on, her thoughts on a few of today's hot topics and what have you. But I also have a guy that I invited on last week who's going to go more in depth on the topic of safe spaces for LGBTQ wrestlers and wrestling fans, and specifically as it relates to all elite wrestling. And so, you know, we're going to have the man, the myth, the legend, Darnell, at DNELLICIOUS. a.k.a. Marge Simpson is Black on Twitter. We're going to have Darnell come on and talk about that and share his thoughts. Really just an eye-opening conversation that I think folks will really enjoy. But before we get to any of that, I want to give a shout-out. I want to give a shout-out to, first and foremost, Tyra Russamee. It's her birthday, so I want to give a shout-out to her. You know, she is the most dangerous woman in all professional wrestling. She's torn up half the world, you know, Asia. She's been to New Zealand. She's been all over the damn place, beating people up. And now she's back in the United States. So I'm going to be very nice to her by wishing her a happy birthday because I don't want her to beat me up. So happy birthday, Tyra. And please, you know, don't hurt me. My face is not pretty enough for you to rearrange, so leave it alone, please. But I also want to give a shout out to my cousin Shawn. That's right, cousin Shawn, great guy. It's his birthday today, and let me tell you something. Shawn was a person, when I was a kid growing up, he always made me feel comfortable being a pro wrestling fan. Always encouraged it. He's a wrestling fan himself, and, you know, Shawn's older than I am, but just a really cool guy who enjoyed and respected my fandom and had his own, and we could always bond and connect around pro wrestling. That was a thing that even to this day that we share. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my cousin Shawn and really show some love and say happy birthday to Shawn. Just a cool guy. And I want to put it out there for you listeners. I mean, share some of your wrestling stories there over at Duke Loves Rasslin on Facebook. You know, check out the fan page. Let me know. Was there anyone in particular in your life, whether you're related to them, they were a close friend, was there anyone in particular in your life that made you feel good about being a pro wrestling fan? Because, you know, we always hear about the folks who discourage being a pro wrestling fan. Oh, that's fake, and blah, blah, blah. Nonsense like that. We always hear those stories, but what about the people who encouraged you? What about the people who were like, yeah, man, that's cool, and would sit there and talk to you for countless hours about what's going on in wrestling or something cool that they saw or who their favorite is, et cetera, et cetera. Reach out. Let me know what you think about that because, you know, my cousin Shawn, by far, is the first person that always comes to mind when I think about people who have always encouraged my wrestling fandom, and I appreciate that. So, again, happy birthday, Shawn. And with that said, you know, we're just going to jump right into some of the good stuff here. Hold on one second, folks. We're going to get Sade from DDT Divas on the line.
All right. So like I told you, folks, we had a special guest today. I mean, somebody that I've been dying to get on the show just because she's doing some really cool things with a new website that she has by the name of DDTDivas.com. So without further ado, Welcome, Sade, to the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent. Listen, tell everybody about DDT Divas, because this is really a website that caught me off guard. Talk to us about the concept and what it is you're trying to accomplish with this thing.
I have been a wrestling fan all my life, pretty much. I'm a 90s baby, and I started watching wrestling with my family, my uncles, my grandfather, and I just loved it. It was definitely a bonding activity for us as a family, and I would watch it with my cousins. Back then there was WCW, WWE, or WWF at that time, but so it's just been a really big part of my life. As I got older, I kind of wanted to connect with more fans and connect with people in the wrestling community. I started by attending live events with my cousin, who still watches. Her and I watch, and we always have conversations about wrestling. So she's really my person for wrestling. But I actually got a chance to go to Wizard World Philly in 2016, and I got a chance to meet Sasha Banks. And I got a photo with her, and I went to the panel, and it was just a really great experience. And when I went to the panel and the photo line, I saw so many black women in line, so many little black girls, and I was thinking, hey, I need to start a blog or start something for black women who love wrestling, because I'm a black woman who loves wrestling, and I was once a little black girl who loved wrestling so much.
That's pretty interesting. So the blog is specifically for black female fans, and you're featuring black wrestlers mostly on the blog?
Yeah, I like to talk about issues that affect black fans. I like to talk about fashion. I love ring gear fashion. I love ring gear fashion. I'm not really a fashion person outside of wrestling, but I love to see who's wearing what and find out what inspired them. I also like to talk about, maybe talk about black wrestlers. I'm actually working on an article about Kofi Kingston and reasons why he should become champion, Kofi Mania. And I also, Kofi Mania, definitely. I support Kofi. I've been a fan for a while. It's his time now. His time should have been a long time ago, actually. But yeah, so and also in the future, I definitely want to start profiling black wrestlers, interviews, Q&As. I definitely want to kind of start doing that. The blog is still kind of young. It's a baby. I actually created it in July of 2018, so it's fairly young.
Oh, okay. So you're just getting off the ground here. Do you know of any websites that are doing what you're doing, where literally you're featuring black wrestlers from the black female wrestling fan perspective?
I know there is a group that was started recently. It's a Facebook group, and that's about it. At the time, I didn't know of any blogs or anything. I'm trying to think of the name of the group, but I definitely, when I did a little bit of research, and I couldn't really find many websites for that, a targeted audience of black women. I would see things for black fans, but nothing for women specifically.
It's interesting because, the wrestling fan traditionally, and it still holds true today, is super majority male. And when we start chopping up the demographics and going a little deeper, I mean, I think it's something like 40% of the wrestling fan base is white. And, there's a lot of males of all different backgrounds and what have you, but it's the female fan that's a sweet spot that everyone's trying to attract and what have you. It's interesting to me because I did my own research myself, and by far DDTDivas.com is the first site that I was able to find where it is addressing pro wrestling from the black female wrestling fan perspective. Why is that type of representation so important?
It's very important because as a black woman, sometimes you get into the wrestling community or any space, and your story isn't told. Your experiences, your opinion doesn't matter. I know from a personal standpoint, after I met Sasha Banks, I wanted to join the wrestling community, so I went on Facebook and looked for a whole bunch of online wrestling groups, and I decided to join a few, and it was cool at the time, and then it got to a point where it wasn't cool anymore. It just became very toxic, very problematic. I remember when the whole page leaks happened, and there was a lot of sexism. There was a lot of people being very rude, very mean to her, and they were saying a lot of offensive things about women. So I started to notice that in the group, and then there's also a time where I noticed if you were a black person in the group, you would maybe want to talk about issues that affect black wrestlers, or you want to talk about, you just trying to celebrate black wrestlers. You couldn't really do that unless it was Black History Month. If it wasn't Black History Month, you couldn't really talk about black wrestlers. Like you would be labeled as a troll or a racist, or you would get these negative labels that aren't really true.
That's interesting, and the influence of the wrestling groups on Facebook and the communities that are on Twitter and what have you. They're the children of the old message boards that we used to have when the internet first started, which is kind of interesting. Before that, you had your newsletters, and people would find ways to do through the tape trading communities. They'd go to events and exchange information, and they were calling each other on conference call lines and party lines and things like that, and just discussing wrestling. So it's interesting how these communities evolve. But to your point, when you're a person of color and you're a fan and you want to discuss more diverse topics instead of just the same old run-of-the-mill wrestlers, when you want to highlight wrestlers of color or more females and what have you, sure. I've seen it myself. There's been tremendous amounts of pushback, especially in groups that there are a large amount of people. Yes.
The group that I'm referring to, I'm not going to call any names, it's about 20,000 people in that group. And there was at the time, I'm not sure now because I'm still a member, but I don't post in it. I'm nosy. So I'll look and see what's happening in the group, but I don't post or comment on anything. But at the time, there was only one admin running this group, and he would, I don't think he wanted to accept a lot of negativity in the group, but he's just one person, and it's hard to go through all these people's posts and comments and, just be a great admin with just one person. And, he would post in these large groups, and it wasn't, the post would get approved, but you would get a lot of backlash. And, people would verbally abuse you, or, they would say they would block you. And pretty much, to be honest, it was kind of like they were telling you to shut up, maybe in a polite manner, or sometimes not in a not so polite manner, but it was kind of shut up, we don't want to talk about this. Let's talk about something else, and to be honest, we've seen this happen with Nia Jax recently, when she had the tweet with the hashtag We Here Too. She got a lot of backlash, and she got some backlash from someone that she worked with. So it happens to women of color all the time. You're kind of told to shut up about things.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take that you bring up there. Have you had that same type of experience at live events?
At live events? No, not really. When I go to live events, I don't really go by myself. I always go with family or friends, but usually it's me and my cousin and another cousin, a male cousin, and we kind of go as a group. So we don't really interact with people that we don't know when we go to the live events. So I don't have that experience because I don't really interact with people that I don't know.
Now, one of the things that I've found, and look, I have not only do we have the Duke Loves Wrestling Facebook fan page, but we actually have Duke's Wrestling Crew, which is a private Facebook group. And one of the reasons why it's private is because the core group members, when we originally started, they wanted it that way in order to filter out the negativity and things that they have seen in other groups. And one of the things that I noticed right from the beginning, the women in the group were so vocal in bringing up topics and keeping conversation going and what have you, and that really set a tone where the guys knew they had to be on their best behavior. So even when we're posting, photos of attractive people and what have you, the guys are very careful about how they respond on the photos because they don't want to be disrespectful to the ladies in the room, which it's really interesting because when you look at some of these other groups, the strongest voice in the room overwhelmingly is the guys.
Yes.
So
yes.
we kind of go down a rabbit hole of anything goes in that type of situation, unfortunately. So it's interesting that you bring that up there. So what's your goal for DDTDivas.com? I mean, what's the ultimate goal with that website there?
So I want to create most importantly, I want to let our stories be heard. If you're a black female fan and you have a story, I want to reach out to fans and to wrestlers, female wrestlers, and just wrestlers in general, to be honest. But, I want a safe space where I'm not going to, really monitor comments or anything unless it gets too out of hand. But, I want a space where we can, celebrate black wrestlers. We can talk about, the lack of black champions in the WWE, and we can talk about, Ring of Honor and Jay Lethal and his long championship reign. So you can talk about these things without someone saying, hey, you're being a troll. There's nothing trolly about it, but you'll get, people that say, oh, you're being a troll, So I want to have that space and to, put out content, that specifically maybe for African-American women or black women, but anyone can enjoy it. If you're a wrestling fan and you like a wrestler or you like this topic or, for example, with Kofi Mania, you like Kofi Kingston, here are 5 reasons why, we think he should be champ at DDT Divas, so you would enjoy the article. And it's definitely about having a space and being a gatekeeper. That's a big thing for me. You be your own gatekeeper, being a gatekeeper is very important in the media.
A lot of folks have a hard time when they hear people of color discuss, we're gonna make a primary focus this from a person of color's perspective, from a black person's perspective, what have you. That's going to be the focus here. A lot of folks who are critics of that say, oh, so what does that mean? Do you hate everybody else? Do you hate white people? How can why is it like that? Address that from your perspective. It's just because this is a website where we're going to get more exposure from the voices of the black female wrestling fan. Does that mean that everybody else is excluded and you don't want them to check your website out?
No, wrestling is for everyone. Wrestling is so diverse. There are so many wrestlers and fans of different races, religions, sexual orientations, and backgrounds. Honestly, wrestling was a way for me to meet other people of different backgrounds. I grew up in a city. I went to, a small high school. I went to a large college. I actually went to Kent State University. I'm a Kent State graduate. Yeah, Kent State, Dolph Ziggler, But, yeah, so I actually met him once at Kent State for a special event. But, anyway.
Shout out to Dolph Ziggler. Yeah, the pride of Kent State, of course.
Yeah, he is cool. He has the record there. So, so wrestling is, it was my way of meeting other people of different backgrounds and to have something in common with them and say, hey, you like wrestling? But at the same time, as I've seen in these groups, you can't talk about, you're kind of told to shut up. You can't talk about certain things. So, I just want to be able to, talk about these things. No one's excluded. If you have an opinion, that's cool, It's just, there's a space and there's a place for it. And I mean, as a magazine journalism major, I have a degree in BS in news with a concentration in magazine journalism. You see that magazines always focus on a certain audience. It's a car magazine. It's for people who love cars. It's a fashion magazine. It's for people who love fashion. You know, there's also magazines for black women like Essence and, you know, so there's always a target audience because that space exists and people who love that thing or that topic are there and they want more. And it's just something, you know, for people to have and to enjoy. But everyone's definitely welcome to read. And, you know, if someone wants to reach out for a story or definitely I'm all for it. I love it. Like, you know.
Good call. Good call. We're talking to Sade from DDTDivas.com, really one of the more bright blogs/websites out there today. And I encourage everybody to check it out. Let's shift gears here because we've qualified what the website is and what you're doing there. Let's talk about the current wrestling product in general.
Sure.
First and foremost, you know, I take a look at somebody like Bianca Belair and some of the exciting things that she's doing down in NXT. And even at TakeOver, when she took on, you know, Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's Championship, before that event, we had Sam Roberts on the WWE panel, and he made some disparaging remarks about Bianca Belair. Do you feel something like that was just done in character, or do you think that was serious? And more importantly, how does that impact the perception of a wrestler when somebody like a Sam Roberts makes disparaging remarks the way that he did?
It's the fact that he made those comments before the show was kind of, you know, I felt like it was, you know, out of pocket, and you're trying to promote the show, not, you know, tear down the wrestlers or the show or the match. So I felt like he should have done that at that time, definitely, for sure. And, you know, maybe he could have said it, the way he said it was what was kind of alarming to me. You know, it's just, I don't know. And I also wonder if he would have said that about a wrestler who wasn't of color, a woman who wasn't of color. Would he have said the same thing? Would he have said it the same way? So, you know, it really didn't sit right with me. And, you know, I don't know if he was in character and he said it, because sometimes in character, you know, you say things and, you know, he didn't mean it. You know, he could have been in character, but it still, like, has a impact on a person. So, you know, I wasn't really feeling his comments.
There's something like that. Do you think that provides the fans with doubt about a wrestler, or do you think that something like that wouldn't carry as much power? But, you know, a comment from Sam Roberts, and what he said was he doesn't think that she's ready or she's good enough to be champion. He doesn't even feel that she should even have that match, which was just completely bizarre to me, considering the fact that Bianca Belair at the time was undefeated for over a year.
Exactly.
But do you feel that the fans would look at her with doubt after a comment like that, or do you think that it wouldn't land at all?
I think some fans will. Some fans really, you know, they listen to wrestling commentators, podcasters, bloggers. I mean, as a blogger myself, you know, you have a little slight, you know, power, a little bit of power over people's opinions. Like, you can shape what they think sometimes if, you know, you push out content and you say things. That's just the power of the media, you know. So I think it could for some fans, not for other fans. I know for me, like, I'm a fan of her. Like, I love her. She's good. She was undefeated. Yeah, so it didn't really impact me casting doubt on her or her abilities. So.
Good call. Good call. Let's talk about Naomi. Here's a young lady who, you know, she's had so many opportunities that she's taken advantage of. I mean, she's a former champion. But it seems like something is missing the last year or so. You know, going back to when she lost the SmackDown Women's Championship, it just doesn't seem like she's been able to find her groove. What do you attribute that to, as somebody who is an avid fan, and now you're a trained journalist and what have you, so you understand how to research and look at things from a different perspective? What do you think this is? Is this something wrong with the talent? Is she just not being booked right? Is it a combination of the two? What's your take on that?
I just think she's not being booked right. She's not being utilized enough. She's very athletic. She is entertaining. She has a fan base. People love her. It's unfortunate that she would have to, there was a time when she wasn't on TV for a while, and, now she has the story with Mandy Rose. I'm not sure if it's over or not, because Mandy Rose took on Asuka Tuesday, but, it's very unfortunate, and I'm a big Naomi fan. I love her. I want to meet her. She's one of the wrestlers that I definitely want to meet, and actually it was a post about her that really got me to leave the wrestling group that I was in. So right after she had won the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania 33, I posted in a group about her winning, and, congratulations to Naomi. And I had already been kind of posting a lot about her and the glow belt, because I really love the glow belt. So it was kind of just a bunch of Naomi posts that I was posting in the group, and, someone got really upset, and they, said some really horrible things about her, and, and most of the comments were offensive comments, and people saying that, they didn't like her and things like that, and as a fan, I was really offended by that, but someone really, really said something very offensive, and, I have a tendency sometimes to, feed the troll. I feel like we all do sometimes, a person's trolling or being disrespectful, and you keep, going at it with them. And there was a woman, I believe, that said, sis, you don't have to take this. There's another group out there. And she, told me about the Nation of African American Wrestling, NAW, and I joined NAW, and that was also a really big inspiration to me to start the blog as well. So shout out to Jabari and the people of NAW, because everyone's so great in that group.
Yeah, shout out to Big Bear, the Jabari. He's the man, and Just Larry, who's also part of that group. He's one of my arch nemesis, so I don't give any shout outs to Just Larry. I can't stand him. But definitely Big Bear Jabari. That's my guy over there. Switching speeds to the guys here, because you spoke about Kofi Kingston, but there's another guy by the name of Bobby Lashley, and here's this guy who is just a freak of nature. I mean, he's all muscle. He has great, imposing, dangerous look. He's a guy who was successful in MMA, so he's a legitimate kick your butt kind of dude. Why is it that it's just not working with Bobby Lashley on Raw?
I don't know. I loved him with Leo Rush. He really got a lot of heel heat with Leo on the mic, and I don't know what they were doing with the whole pose gimmick. It seemed a little SpongeBob-y to me, but that's okay. If it worked, if he could get people to react to him, that's cool. But I really think they should push Lashley. I think if they like a wrestler that has that physique and the look, they definitely should push him, because he had a good MMA run. He was in Impact. So I don't know. They really need to. I think that the WWE needs to get behind him and do all they can to push him, because he would be great championship material, and they really need to build on that and really do their best with him.
Sure, and I think that the match that everybody wants to see, and we were anticipating as soon as Lashley was brought back into the WWE, was Lashley versus Lesnar.
Yep.
I mean, that is just a no-brainer feud. These guys could tear the house down against each other, and it would be, and they could stiff each other and be okay with it, because they both can take a punch. I mean, it just, I don't understand why we haven't seen that match yet.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with Brock Lesnar and his title reign, and I'm just a little sad with Brock, and I don't know. I like I want to see him more on TV, and it's just kind of disappointing with Lesnar.
Sure. What do you think of this thing that they're doing now, or frankly not doing, with Asuka? I mean, she's the SmackDown Women's Champion, and she barely gets any play whatsoever. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a pattern here. It seems like they're putting all their eggs in one basket. You know, they're not. They should be focusing on Asuka. She's champ, but they're focusing on Ronda Rousey and Charlotte and Becky, which is a good storyline. But you know, they also have Asuka here, and you know, it's kind of sad because you see this a lot with people of color and champs of color. They kind of get the title and they're there, but they don't really have a good feud or rivalry, or, you know, it happened with Naomi, you know, like she had a rivalry with like Lana. Lana's good, but, you know, it wasn't really drawn out enough. So I'm hoping they can like do something with Asuka, you know, give her a rival, but it doesn't look like it because WrestleMania is almost here, and I don't know. It's just kind of sad.
It sure is. And I mean, you're talking about somebody who legitimately is one of the top wrestlers in the world and has been for years. And Asuka, they are completely dropping the ball with her, and it's unnecessary. It really just makes you scratch your head. I mean, a lot of folks, including Jim Ross, have brought up the fact that, you know, her English is not too good, and maybe that's part of the problem. Well, then stick her with a manager. I mean, hell,
Exactly.
You know, Leo Rush is doing it. I mean, come on. Would it be so hard to give Lana a manager and have her, you know, be presented as the special attraction that she truly is? It boggles my mind.
Exactly. If Brock can have Paul Heyman, they can get someone for Asuka.
Absolutely.
Like, a language barrier isn't a thing. I mean, I feel like it's not a big problem in wrestling. Like, you look at other wrestlings and, you know, New Japan, there are people who, you know, I don't know. It's just, I feel like that's the thing. They worry about things like that, and that's not the problem. Like, a language barrier is not the problem. Like, Asuka, people love Asuka. She's good. Like, just try something. Like, don't just sit there. Like, try, put an effort, and, you know, they can do something with Asuka.
Agreed. There's a new promotion, well, a relaunch promotion, I should say, in WOW, which, you know, folks can find on Access TV every Friday night as part of the Access TV Fights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. What are your thoughts on this new? This is an all-women's promotion. You know, it's owned by Jeannie Buss of the Los Angeles Lakers. What are your thoughts on that promotion just in general?
I love WOW. I watch it every week since it's been coming on Access TV every Friday, and I like live tweet because they have the hashtag, and I just love it. You know, it's good to see talented women wrestle, and they're wrestling, and they're good at it, and, you know, they get time to shine. And I love the characters. The characters are very larger than life, you know, so I like that about WOW. And I also like how diverse and inclusive their roster is compared to other companies. Very diverse, inclusive roster of women who come in all shapes and sizes and colors and backgrounds, and it's inspiring, and I just love it, and I want to see more of WOW, and I honestly wish it was like 2 hours, but at the same time, I know that 2 hours isn't always the best thing, but I love it. I love the show. I love the wrestlers. It's just great.
Well, and, you know, I just want to give a shout out to the company as well, and just mention that, you know, Samantha Smart in particular, she's been very rude to me on Twitter. She called me low IQ. Samantha Smart, listen, you and I can have an IQ test any day of the week. I will destroy you, just so you know. And if you keep talking crazy to me, I'm going to have the beast powerbomb you. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm not a fan of that Sam Smart. She's very rude. So is there anything else that we should be keeping an eye out on in the coming months, just in the wrestling business in general, something that you're excited about that you want folks to know about?
I look forward to more WOW. Right now, when it comes to women wrestling right now, it's my favorite. The WWE has been very disappointing with women's wrestling. You know, I also look at other companies as well, but WOW, maybe because it's all, all women and the characters, it just takes me back. It's very nostalgic, and the nostalgia is real. It kind of takes me back to my childhood of being a kid who, like, a girl who loves wrestling, and just seeing all these women, and they have, like, the superhero, characters. Also, I'm looking forward to Kofi Mania. Hopefully the WWE does something with Kofi. I hope they don't. There's rumors that they're going to break up the New Day. They're going to split them up. I hope they don't. I love the New Day as a group. I love all three of them as wrestlers, like individual wrestlers, but as a group, they're really strong and they're really solid. So, I hope that's not true, that they're going to, like, split the group. I'm looking forward to All Elite Wrestling. Excited. I wish I could have got tickets, but when you're broke, you can't get tickets. But when you're broke, you can't get tickets. But, I'm excited for AEW. Very excited to see what happens. Just more wrestling. One thing I could say with the blog, I was always kind of looking at other wrestling promotions and companies, but it really kind of opened my eye, and I want to, focus on all as many wrestling companies and, promotions as possible. But yeah, definitely, I'm excited for All Elite Wrestling.
Good call. If folks who want to, contribute to DDTDivas.com, or if they want to interact with you, especially, wrestlers who want to be interviewed, what's the best way that you can be reached?
I can be reached Twitter DM, also email address, which is DDTDiva, no S, so DDTDiva at DDTDivas.com. I check my email as much as possible. I worked in the communication field, so I'm always on the email, always checking. So definitely, can I give a shout out to someone who's actually helped inspire me to do the blog?
Sure.
I want to give a shout out to my friend Red Rayner of Fireline Digital. He was actually the person. So we met in one of the toxic groups, but he was like one of the few people that I actually like talked to in the group. So he kind of inspired me to actually build the website and actually do it, because I had the idea in my mind, but I was like, I don't think I want to like do it. I don't want to create a website. I don't want to do this, even though I knew, I probably could do it. I just didn't. But he was really inspiring, and he's been really helpful with all the technical stuff of websites. And, he said he's going to help me like redo the logo and, build a better site, because honestly, the site could be better, the design. And so he's definitely going to help me with that. So shout out to Red for inspiring me to actually do something and become very active. So
yeah, big shout out. That's pretty cool. Well, listen, like I said, Sade, I appreciate what you're doing with DDTDivas.com. I believe in what you're doing. So we'll definitely have you back on as the website continues to grow. And hey, just don't stop. Keep moving forward, because we do need to hear from different populations within the wrestling fan community. So, hearing about what's going on from the black female wrestling fan, that's awesome. So keep it up.
Thank you so much. And I remembered the name of the Facebook group for black women fans that was recently created. It's Queens of the Ring with the K. So if anyone wants to join a group, right now I'm just a blog, but if you want to join like a community, they should definitely check out Queens of the Ring with a K, like Queens with a K. So.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Very insightful, very interesting interview that we had there with Sade from DDT Divas. Definitely check out that website, DDTDivas.com. Let me know what you think of it. Like she said, it's important to have more inclusion. There's so many voices out there. The pro wrestling fan base, everyone's coming from so many different walks of life, nationalities, different backgrounds, genders, you name it. And it's good to hear from everybody. I mean, I want to know what other folks are thinking and how they perceive what's going on, because more voices in the room, more perspectives. I mean, we all get educated and we'll all be better off for it. We're going to keep the ball rolling. I'm going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk to my man Darnell, who is going to break down LGBTQ safe spaces as it relates to pro wrestling organizations. Safe spaces not only for the fans, but also for the wrestlers. So we'll be right back.
This is professional wrestling announcer, the young professor, a.k.a. the pro wrestler professor, and you are listening to the biggest heel in all of professional wrestling podcasts. We're talking the Boston Bad Boy and my boy Duke on the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast.
All right, everybody, we're back. And, last week we ended the show on a pretty interesting level there. I brought up some things going on, not only just in the wrestling world, but AEW, and a conversation that was had on Twitter. Really interesting stuff, and specifically safe spaces for LGBTQ fans and wrestlers. And, this is a topic that we don't hear enough about. You really got to dig deep online on social media to hear anyone talking about that type of stuff. I haven't heard it as a mainstream conversation, so I figured, you know what? Let me bring somebody on who is knowledgeable about the topic, who has really sparked and really encouraged everybody to start talking about this more and get educated. I want to shut up and hear from somebody knowledgeable on the topic, and I think that if more of us did something like that, we would actually gain more understanding and more intelligence. So without further ado, the fabulous fashionista of New York City, Mr. Darnell Mitchell. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Listen, I got to tell you, this is a big deal. I really appreciate you coming on the show, because I know I sent out the invite on the show last week. So this is huge, you coming on. I want to thank you up front.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. I have a very busy schedule, so my podcast times are very limited. So it was surprising that out of all days, today was the day you picked, and this is the day I'm available at the time I'm available. So it worked out very well.
Excellent. And you have your own podcast, right? Let's plug that real quick before we get started.
So I'm a part of, it's kind of a mouthful, I'm a part of the Pro Wrestling Mothership Network. So we are 4 different podcasts, kind of all rolled together. We're a part of the Growlix podcast. So we have a podcast, Shopping with Josh, the Shotgun Radio podcast. I host the main podcast, which is Pro Wrestling Mothership, with my friend Kevin Wilder. We talk about WWE, Progress, Shimmer, Ring of Honor, news, all of that goodness. And then I also host a show called the Queer Nerd Podcast, which I really enjoy, where my host or my co-host, it's always someone new each episode. A lot of times it's a wrestler, sometimes it's just some of my mates, but the rule is you have to be either a woman, a person of color, or someone who is LGBTQ+, because I feel that straight white guys get everything. I've had one straight white guy on it, and I had to have him on it. I had RJ City on it, just because I love RJ City, and I think he's a super positive example of someone who's actually compassionate and, gets it. But he is my only straight
Got it.
male person I've had.
He hits the quota, and then after that, that's it, huh?
Yeah, he hits the quota. I was like, you could be on the show again in 6 episodes, but it'll be a second.
Well, it's funny because a lot of folks don't take the time to realize this, but and Google, of all places, has actually put out a lot of information about this in the past 6 months. The podcast game is not very diverse. I mean, like you said, it is straight white male for the most part, and that's just the way it is. And we do need a lot more representation out there because there's a lot of other folks who have stories to tell and perspectives to share. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, I feel like I make a conscious effort to follow as many podcasts as possible that are run by women, that are run by people of color, that are run by queer people, because that's the stuff I want to hear. I think that not to generalize, obviously, white men, but what are you giving me that's interesting that what is Chad giving me? That's interesting that Lewis isn't. Like,
Sure.
Like, I want a new perspective, because all of the stories I've heard since I was younger were from straight white men. And now I want to hear stories from people who are actually different than that. And I think that's more interesting, because there were thought processes and narratives that some people just don't think about. And I think it's really, really important that we learn everything so we can actually talk about things.
Well said. Well said. And I totally agree with you there. So let's jump into this AEW discussion. First and foremost, how did this start? Because you're a pretty strong voice on Twitter. You got a lot of followers. I'm very impressed with the amount of people, not just fans, but actually wrestlers who follow and retweet and interact with you online. It's you got an interesting position, you know, where you're kind of like a go-between in a sense, where you're a voice for a section of the fans, and you're also a person who can reach out to the wrestlers and they'll listen. So tell us about this AEW discussion.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point out. One of my friends, Marcus Dowling, I work for. I also do the podcast for Capital Wrestling based out here in Hoboken, New Jersey. But Marcus Dowling is one of the owners of Capital, and him and I talked once about something, and he said something similar to what you said. He said that I am in a weird position because I'm a queer person of color, and I have an all right sort of amount of Twitter followers that will listen to me, but I also work for wrestling companies. So it's interesting because I'm not a wrestler. I'm not like, well, Lord knows, like I can't do any of that stuff, but I kind of I can barely get out of my bed without like hitting my shin, let alone hit a body slam. So I kind of tread that line between being in the business and being out of the business. So I'm able to have these conversations with fans, and I'm able to have the conversations with wrestlers because the wrestlers also know me as a person. And it's an interesting sort of line to balance. I am huge fans of Sonny Kiss and Nyla Rose. Sonny Kiss is someone who I know personally. I've hung out with Sonny. Sonny was our former Capital Wrestling champion. Sonny, I worked with him at Drags and Dropkicks. Almost every wrestling locker room I've been in, and I've been in a lot, Sonny's typically there. So Sonny and his boyfriend, like, we are very friendly with each other. He's a total sweetheart. Nyla Rose, interestingly enough, worked for Capital Wrestling. So I knew her for 6-7 months before she went off to Japan. And I just saw her on the second at Capital Wrestling in the locker room when she rolled in. I forgot she was wrestling Ariella Nix. We gave each other a big hug. We talked for a second, and she had to go do her stuff. So both of them are tremendous talents. And I am not particularly the hugest supporter of AEW. While I feel that I want every company to be successful because I want crews to get paid, I want wrestlers to have a place to go, it does not mean that place is necessarily for me as a fan. AEW reminds me a lot of Ring of Honor, which I'm not a particular fan of Ring of Honor, and if people like it, knock yourself out. But it became very evident to me when I started scrolling through that, like, oh, shit, people are going to start talking about Sonny and Nyla, because this is something that, whether AEW wants to admit it, like a lot of the elites and a lot of the Bullet Club fan base do have homophobic and transphobic and sexist and racist comments, and they make them very well known online. It's not, you don't have to go searching for these things. So even when the graphic comes up for, I think Nyla's match is her, Kylie Ray, and Britt Baker in a triple threat match, the second comment on it is a transphobic comment. The second comment. You can't deny it. So actually, I think you misspoke at your podcast last week. I had tweeted out first to Cody and Brandy.
Oh, yeah, okay. So Brandy's statement wasn't the first thing that came.
No. Brandy's statement was because of my post. I had written that, and I was very nice. I'm a little sassy person online, but like I was like sitting at the bar when I wrote it. I was like drinking my like whiskey, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna be clear and concise. And I just said, hey, I think you guys need to address this. I think you guys need to make sure you demonize this because Cody is pretty vocal about demonizing certain things online. So I feel like if you can demonize those things, you can easily demonize this thing. It took him about a day and a half to respond to me. And his response was, in my opinion, unacceptable. It was very dismissive, insinuating I was trying to start a scandal, that I was having a dated conversation. And I kind of told him, I'm so sorry you feel that way, and I'm so sorry that you feel that you don't see these comments, but, like, you've got to be blind. You have to be naive. Yeah. And I was not surprised by his reaction because that is the Cody Rhodes that I feel like I've seen online all the time. A lot of people were very taken aback by his comments, and I think that we have to start reconsidering what we actually view as progressive because I'm not really seeing Cody do anything progressive. Am I crazy?
Well, no, not. But let me challenge you for a second, and let me bring up a talking point that folks who disagree with you would bring up. Well, he's hiring people of color. He's hiring LGBTQ wrestlers. He's putting them in matches. And he actually said that in his comment. Isn't that enough? Doesn't that show that he is an ally, he is a supporter of the issues and what have you?
No, it doesn't, because let me be clear about what an ally is. And, like, allyship changes from person to person. What I expect from an ally could be different what someone else expects from an ally, and that is okay. And I always say this phrase, everyone's feelings are valid. So, like, I don't want to discount someone's feelings. But in my opinion, that's some bullshit. I don't think just saying, here's a checklist, oh, wait, I have a queer person of color and a trans person of color, woman of color, let me mark these off and everything is fine, is acceptable, especially when we know that homophobia and transphobia is rampant in the wrestling community, and especially in the fan base, and so a little bit behind the scenes. I think it is your responsibility, if you want to take on and you want to tout yourself as a progressive leader in professional wrestling in 2019, you've got to show the work. What the work means, demonizing those fans who still continue to make these comments. What the work means is making sure you have a code of conduct that is clear and concise and says that I will not have this negativity in my wrestling company. I don't, and furthermore, being allies is means also, and you said it perfectly last week, I think you said it, was to shut up. He did not want to have a dialogue with me. That was not his intention, was to have a dialogue with me. My intention was to have a dialogue with him. His intention was to be dismissive and to be defensive against me. There was nothing in that conversation or a tenth of a conversation or even the conversations he attempted to have with other people where it was him saying, you know what, I'm listening, I'm understanding, please let me know what I can do to make you feel more comfortable. When 100 people are sitting here telling you, hey, just so you know, Darnell started talking about this, but like I feel uncomfortable at your shows. I don't feel like it's a safe space, and for your response to it to be basically a shrug, you are showing to me that you are not an ally, or you're one of those allies that feel that the bare minimum is great. I'm not here for the bare minimum. I think that if you're going to be about it, be about it. Keep the same energy that you keep on these other things that you denounce. Keep the same energy and the respect that you have for other things. I back up what you say. But I get it. A lot of your supporters are, I don't want to say the majority, because that would be incorrect. But, look at your Twitter, and there is a good amount of your fans who are Trump supporters, a good amount of your fans who are openly bigoted. And I get it. You don't want to dip into your pocket. And that's the real reason why you want to address these things, because you realize that that's a good part of your financial gains. So having a kind of PC sort of corporate level answer to everything is the way to deal with things. And I think that's unfortunate. I expect more from him, and I think everyone else should expect more from him. The bare minimum gets us nowhere.
Sure. And you know, I'll just go on record. I agree with you 110% with absolutely everything you just said. Well, well, listen, if I didn't, I'd let you know. But you're hitting on all the same points that, you know, are in my head, and I'll go a step further. Let's do a comparison here. How does the WWE rank in some of these areas? Because, you know, another thing that I'm sure folks are going to say, well, you're just picking on AEW, or you're targeting them. If we were to use a comparison, is the WWE doing enough to provide a safe space for LGBTQ performers and fans?
I can't speak about performers, but I can tell you 100% I feel safe at every single WWE show I have ever been to. There was one show that I had been to, and I've been to a lot of WWE shows. There's one show I've been to where the lady behind me, she called me a faggot, actually, and my two friends who were straight had never heard anyone call me that, and I was like, let's not do this. And they were very mad about it, and I was just like, honey, this isn't the first time I've been called a faggot at a wrestling show. Like, none of this is new. Her child is sitting right beside her. I'm not trying to get in an argument with her. Let's just go get security, get her kicked out, and continue to watch the show. Don't argue with her. And we got security. She got kicked out. I felt bad for the child, but I mean, like, little Larry had to learn someday that your mom's an asshole. Sure. But I feel safe at WWE shows, and a lot of that has to do with the way that WWE fans naturally kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, patrol each other. If someone says something that's really out of line, for the most part, the rest of the crowd kind of boos them down, and it's kind of like, nope, we're not doing that. I've had the most uncomfortable times at Ring of Honor shows, which is why I don't go to Ring of Honor shows anymore. And a lot of that fan base has segued into AEW fans.
Sure.
I feel if something happened in a WWE show, it would be addressed. I don't feel like if something happened in an AEW show, it would be addressed. Wholly, simply because of the information, or like their reaction to certain things. Yeah.
Are they trying to be too much to too many people with AEW, and maybe they're starting to find out that, you know, they put the cart before the horse, and they you know, running a business takes a lot more thought, especially in 2019. Because it doesn't seem like this is something that they even consider, just based on the way that they reacted to you.
No, and that to me says a lot about them too. It was never something that they considered. I honestly don't think it takes a lot to be true to who you are. I think, you know, I'm going to tout Capital Wrestling just because, you know, not just because I work there, but we have queer talent there every single show. The majority of our wrestlers are people of color. And we're just very clear straight up as to who we are, and if you have an issue with it, we'll kick you out. That's it. This is who we are. These are our stars. If you have an issue, bye. Battle Club Pro, which is based out of New Jersey, they do a show every 3 months. Their last show I went to, because I had never met, I'm like very friendly with Effie, but we had never met each other. We followed each other for over a year. We had never met. And he was going to do another show that I was working on, but I was like, dude, I get to meet you at Battle Club Pro. So I went to that show specifically for him. That show had him, it had Pero, it had so much queer talent, and I didn't realize that was what the show was going to be. But Joe Kim Morales is the owner of Battle Club Pro. Like, during his introduction, one of the first things he says is, we don't have time for negativity. We don't have time for any phobia. If you are dismissive, disruptive, racist, sexist, transphobic, or homophobic, and we hear a whiff about it, you'll be kicked out immediately.
Whoa, he actually started the night with that.
Yeah, and I think that's what every wrestling company should do. You know, Progress, and I have a bias against Progress because I am friends with Glenn, but and I do wish they would elaborate a little bit more. But one of the stories that I've always told is one of my first times in Progress in London, because I've been to maybe 5 Progress shows in London. was their moniker is "Don't Be a Dick," which is a little bit more. I wish it was a little bit more kind of specific than because that's such a broad statement to say to someone. That's like wrestling is for everyone. That to me is not an answer. But someone made a homophobic comment or a homophobic chant. Someone called him out on it. Someone told Jim. Jim is in the middle of the ring. He stops, like, before he introduces the next person. Jim is one of the owners. And he says, "We don't fucking do that. Apologize to that person right now." And the guy apologized, and then he said, "Okay, and now you're kicked out."
Wow.
And they kicked him out right then and there. I've been to wrestling shows where they don't fuck around with that. I know AEW can do it because other shows do it. And they do it all the time. So this bare minimum thing for AEW does nothing for me because I know you can be better at it, and I know that you can have your morals and your ethics be ahead of how much money you're going to make, especially when you're all millionaires.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Are you? Let's just say that they take some time and they internalize what's been brought up. They see the response because it's not just you. I mean, you sparked it, and then there's just a ton of people chiming in as well. Shout out to Kate, which I still want to know how she got her Twitter handle. She literally is at Kate. But shout out to Kate. She's been on the show before. She does the Raw Breakdown Project.
Oh, I love Kate. She is the best.
She's the best. She's been on the show. She's awesome. And she was echoing what you were saying, and it was funny because what I noticed is her string of followers were brought into the conversation as well. Just like, you tweet something, your followers see it. So this was something that started to spread.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to go away. And at some point, they're really going to have to address it. Would you be willing to sit down with the AEW folks and have that conversation if they were willing to listen?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's, interestingly enough, when Cody had the NWA championship, we almost were able to book him for Capitol because we have dates with the NWA championship. And the first thing I said to Marcus was, if we get to book Cody, he's going to be in the podcast. Like, you have to put that in his contract. I want to talk to him and Brandy. And this is before AEW even came out, but I still had my thoughts about, and my thoughts are very similar to what they are now, about Cody and the way that he dealt with certain things online. Because this is not the first time Cody's been called out by LGBTQ plus people online. It's not the first time. So I think one of the things about AEW is that them as a whole, that's Brandy, because Brandy does it too sometimes, where someone says something negative and she will like hound on you for days. And I'm like, girl, you're a millionaire. I'm sure there is something else you could be doing with your time. Like, what are we doing? Why are we trolling this person who's an asshole? Block them and just call it a day. But her and the Jackson brothers and Cody, I think that they are so used to people calling them incredible business people and incredible minds and so progressive that they don't know what to do when they are called out for their shortcomings. And I think it's really important for companies, and I think it's really important for people to talk to people who don't agree with you. I mean, obviously in limits. I don't really want to talk to a Ku Klux Klan member. Like, I'm good. But, like, talking to, like, I don't know what you're going to say to me to change my mind. Well, maybe I do suck as a person. Where is that conversation going to go?
Sure.
But I think talking to a fan, I'm a fan of wrestling of 24 years. Like, the majority of my life I've been watching wrestling. And I know wrestling, and I know it really, really well, and I love wrestling with every fiber of my being, despite the fact that a lot of times wrestling doesn't love me. And I think that's even more important, that I love this in spite of this. I think that them having a conversation with someone that might have different opinions and actually wants to address these issues would be more than beneficial for them. Because in the end, like, doesn't that make you look better? Like, that's the objective at the end of all of this, right? Is for you to always look as great as possible. And, like, why wouldn't you? As long as you were honest and you were straight up and you answered the questions and you were, you actually were thoughtful and you took time and consideration, like, I don't see the negative in us having that conversation. I would love to. I would absolutely love to. I think Cody Rhodes is. Let me be clear. I think Cody Rhodes is one of the most talented businessmen in wrestling right now. There's no denying it. That man is no one. Let's be clear. No one is like, you know what? I really love Cody Rhodes as a wrestler. He has some of my greatest matches of all time. No one's saying that, because if you are, you're a fucking lie. But that man has a character, he has a charisma, and he has a business mind that cannot be denied. So I wish him the best in his success, but I also want him to be, I would feel like I was being intellectually dishonest if I wasn't calling him out for some of these accolades that he's getting. You know, him, Kenny Omega, whoever you want to put into that conversation.
Wow. You definitely have laid it all on the line there. There's no two ways about it. Man. So if let's say that the AEW folks do want to get in touch with you, or anyone else in particular who wants to learn and keep this conversation going, what's the best way that folks can reach you?
You can reach me on my Twitter. That's probably going to be the best way, is my main Twitter. I just changed my name, and I keep forgetting that I changed it. It says Marge Simpson is black, because Marge Simpson is black. They are an interracial family. Lisa is way too woke and progressive to be a white girl. And Bart, that hair, that is some nappy ass hair. He is a black kid. He is a biracial kid. And there are two sisters, Selma and Patty. That's the reason they don't like Homer, because he's white. Like, it all makes sense when you think about it. Same thing with Peter Valentine. Yeah, Peter Valentine, totally black. You cannot deny it. You can follow me on Twitter. See, now y'all going to go online and y'all going to think about it, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She goes to sleep in a bonnet. She wraps her hair up. Come on.
Yeah, there might be something to it now. This is some convincing evidence here. Wait a second.
It's right there. It's right there. Get out, girl. You can follow me on Twitter at DNellicious. That's DNELLICIOUS.
The fabulous fashionista of New York City. Listen, it was a pleasure to speak with you, Darnell Mitchell. Definitely got to have you back sometime, and more importantly, keep doing what you're doing, because you're bringing to the forefront conversations that may not be comfortable for everybody, but they need to be had. And especially if we're going to continue to make wrestling as inclusive as possible, then we need to have honest conversations, and we need to check ourselves. And that goes for everybody. So I appreciate you putting something out there that got me personally to think, and keep doing what you're doing, bro.
Thank you very, very much. Sorry to say one more thing. Like, even off of that, there was a great article I read. It's a weird equation, but there's a great article I read that was talking about the racist people after the civil rights movement. And it said, where did they go? It's like no one actually learned anything, because everyone was just told to shut up, and they went inside their homes. And that's why we still can't have these conversations. Wrestling is the same thing. We know that there's some shitty things in wrestling, whether, not even just talking about the Cody Rhodes situation, because that's one thing. But we know that there's some down and dirty, gritty, shitty stuff in wrestling. And if we want it to be better, and we want it to be as great as it can be, because wrestling is amazing. It's like the coolest thing in the world, then we actually have to have these uncomfortable conversations. And if you don't want to have these uncomfortable conversations, then you can be left behind. Because we're here to advance things. I want to advance things. I want everyone to want to advance things. And if you don't want to advance things, then I don't have time for you.
Damn. Talk about a powerful interview there. I mean, goodness gracious. There's really not much more to add to it. We're talking about folks who, again, are more knowledgeable on the topic. And like I said, folks, I just wanted to shut up and hear from somebody who knew what they were talking about. So shout out to Marge Simpson is black. Darnell is a good guy, very opinionated, knows what he's talking about, and most importantly, very well respected out there. So I really appreciate him coming on the show, really appreciating him digging deep and not being afraid to name names and stand firm on what he had to say. That's the best way to go. And you really listen to that, there are some very concrete examples of pro wrestling organizations that do provide a safe space for LGBTQ wrestlers and fans. And he gave examples of his fan experience and when things went south, when we had fans saying homophobic slurs or even racial slurs, what have you. You just call security, they kick them out, and that's the way it is. But even promotions going so far before the show even starts, getting on the microphone and letting people know we're not going to tolerate this crap, that's a big deal. And I think that, for the folks over at AEW, I don't feel that Cody Rhodes is a bad person. I don't think the Bucks or Brandy or, even the Khan family, I don't think they're bad people. I think this is something that maybe they haven't spent enough time sitting down and thinking about. And it is important, and it is something that they should think about, and they should be a little more upfront about how they're going to tackle these issues. There's nothing wrong with that. This is a moving target. It constantly evolves. And if you want to appeal to and sustain a fan base that's going to be with you, you want legacy fans. You want the wrestling fan today to introduce this to a younger generation, and they can be your fan tomorrow, and it keeps going and it keeps going. That's what happened to me. My father was a major wrestling fan, so it was only natural that I was going to become one as well. And when I think about my fandom and what I've been able to do, I've exposed folks who otherwise may not have watched pro wrestling ever in their life or ever taken it serious enough to continue to go back to it. Even with this show, we've brought people who stepped away. They've come back, and they're interested in what's going on. They want to hear more about not only what's happened in the past, but also what's happening currently, how that's going to affect the future. So you really want to pay attention to the fan base, listen, especially when there are folks who are marginalized. They tell you that this stuff is going on. They tell you this is a problem that should be addressed. I think it makes sense to bring them on board, sit down with them, and ask them, hey, how can we do that? Nothing wrong with that. So, I definitely encourage AEW, reach out to Darnell. That's at DNELLICIOUS. Reach out to him. He's passionate about what he's talking about. And I'm pretty sure that you guys can have a very healthy and fruitful conversation about what can be done to ensure AEW is a safe space for all. That's my 2 cents on that. Folks have been asking for a longer formatted show, and we certainly delivered with 2 powerhouse interviews this week. And that's it. I'm not going to bore you anymore. Like I said, I gave the Boston Bad Boy the night off. He'll be back next week, which just in time because my man, Bruce Mitchell from Pro Wrestling Torch, he's going to come on and we're going to chop it up about what's happening in the world of professional wrestling and talk about his stellar career. Maybe even talk about our friend Wade Keller, the whole 9 yards there. Folks, be kind to yourselves. Be kind to others. And this is the Duke signing off saying, take it away, Tony Schiavone.
This is Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Wrestling.